Welcome to the third in a series of what is called Economic Development Services for Your Local Business series. Today you're viewing part 3, and this is the final part in a series of 3 entitled Financing Your Growing Business. This session, like the others preceding it, is designed to share information about our department's programs and programs developed for your direct benefit as small, medium, and large businesses, nonprofit organizations, or creative ventures. Please be sure to pay attention as much as you can. We're trying our best to provide you with the latest and greatest information that we have. Before we get started, there is a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. Everyone will need to be muted prior to the start of the panel. If you have a question for our panel, type your question in the chat box. We will answer as many of those questions as we can at the end of the presentation. You can leave your camera on or off. Please change your view to speaker view. This will help you see the speaker better. We are recording these sessions for future training purposes, so if you are bothered by that, please govern yourselves accordingly. We will circulate an evaluation before the end of today. Please be sure to complete it and return it back to us. It helps us to know how well we're doing and to how well we can improve. Before we introduce our speakers, let me tell you a little bit about the Economic Development Department. The City of Austin's Economic Development Department supports and recruits business to Austin through our 6 divisions. Global business expansion, redevelopment, music and entertainment, cultural arts, and heritage tourism. Our mission is to promote a competitive, sustainable, and equitable economy for all. Last year was an unprecedented year for all of our local businesses. COVID-19 pandemic forced most business owners, nonprofits, or creatives to cancel their events, close their doors, or operate significantly with reduced interaction or reduced interperson interaction. Our department supported and sustained many businesses, nonprofits, and creatives during this time by launching 14 economic recovery programs between April 2020 and January 21, providing financial assistance to 5,101 businesses and creatives that were impacted by COVID-19, facilitating more than 1,000 hours of virtual, non-cost virtual business training, educational events, and coaching. And then we created what was called the www.atxrecovers.com, which is a one-stop location for all persons to be able to find out more about whatever the COVID-19 grants and or services were, or are, so to speak. These efforts, coupled with many Austinites' resolve and determination to succeed, resulted in 32% of businesses and creators reporting growth despite the pandemic. Additionally, 28% reported remaining steady last year. Our survey also found that 91% of businesses who participated in programming offered by our department reported that our programming strengthened their operations in 2020. With that in mind, let me introduce the panel. Our first panelist is Mr. Javier Zarate. He is the manager for Small Business Division. Next, we have yours truly, Dusty McCormick, Economic Development Liaison for Small Business Division. And then we have Mr. Kyle Brandon, Program Manager in Global Business Expansion Division. And finally, Kim McCarson, Economic and Business Liaison for Music and Entertainment Division. With that, that's the panelists. And so I'll ask you to pay attention to the screen, and we will proceed with our presentation, starting off with Mr. Javier Zarate. Take it away, Javier.
Thank you so much, Dusty, and thank everyone for joining this particular session today. I believe you're going to find the information very valuable, particularly if you're looking for opportunities to fund and expand your business. To kick us off, I did want to go ahead and start talking about the Family Business Loan Program. This is a local direct lending program operated through the Economic Development Department. And before I start on the numbers, I wanted to give just a quick background on when this program started and what brought it into fruition. So in prior years, before 2012, the city of Austin had consistently received feedback from small business operators and community members about the continued need to fund their businesses throughout the life cycle of those businesses. And then finally in 2012, we applied for and were successful in securing CDBG funding through Housing and Urban Development under the HUD Section 108 lending program. Locally, this program is known as the Family Business Loan Program, and it was a direct answer to the community's request and desire for direct funding options to help them grow their companies, hire additional individuals and employees, as well as to contribute more broadly to our community. So we're excited to continue to bring this program to you, and this program is an active program in operation currently. So with respect to the numbers of this program, I wanted to go over the community benefit that this program has brought to Austin thus far. So from 22 loans funded, we've been able to leverage over $14 million in private lender financing. This is a public-private partnership, and we do that by providing complementary financing to existing private finance organizations, including banks, credit unions, and even some of our local nonprofit lenders, which we work in partnership with. Currently, we count 8 local partner lenders here in the city of Austin, and that has contributed to the positive benefit of over 260 jobs created or retained in the city of Austin. Those specific jobs retained or created have gone 51% primarily of benefiting low to moderate income individuals in our community. And that is, for obvious reasons, a very good thing. Additionally, when you break down the numbers into the subset of approvals that this program has undertaken, 68% of the approvals have gone to underserved community applicants, including our communities of color, as well as 53% of those loans have gone to woman-owned businesses. With respect to this particular partnership, as previously mentioned, this is a public-private partnership where we provide complementary financing along with a local lender that is willing to commit with us to helping this particular company grow and expand and continue to provide support throughout the life of the loan and beyond. It is an opportunity to create a longer-term lasting relationship with that financial institution, be it a bank, a credit union, or a nonprofit lender, so that they could graduate, so the companies can graduate from this program and really develop long-term financing relationships. So to that end, this particular program, again, complements existing financing opportunities in the market. We do not replace. So we look forward to developing our existing partnerships as well as new partnerships. So if your particular financial institution is not currently a partner, we welcome the opportunity to work with your lender to see if we can put together a transaction that makes the most sense for you, your bank, and for the city of Austin's goals of hiring low to moderate income individuals in our community. Next slide, please. With respect to the program's mission, as previously mentioned, this was really a response to a needs assessment that was undertaken pre-2012 to identify continued needs in the community, specifically our small business community, to serve their needs to grow and access capital. So with respect to that, this program does enable existing local businesses to expand and grow. We also look for this program, we leverage it to help revitalize communities, as well as to increase the city's tax base and to enhance the overall quality of life. So how do we do that? We do that to enhance the quality of life, we provide greater diversity in our local economy and choice. So by helping lift up successful small businesses to help them grow and hire individuals in their community, that provides our residents greater choice and greater diversity of opportunity for businesses to grow. Additionally, I wanted to share with you the eligibility criteria for this program. We are looking for businesses located in Austin, specifically a business that is currently served under the City of Austin 10-1 structure. Additionally, we are looking for folks with strong creditworthiness. This is a program that to be perpetually strong and to be available for future business owners that need this financing to grow their company. We do need to have a successful rate of repayment so that this money continues to cycle forward into the future to assist our growing needs in our small business community. Additionally, for the larger program, meaning the transactions greater than 100,000 or more, we are looking for individuals with at least 2 years of operation or more. We want a level of experience either selling your product or providing your service so that we can have confidence in the ability to sustain this company going forward, and more importantly, sustaining the jobs that these companies commit to create. Additionally, we do need to have assurances that there are U.S. citizens with no local, state, or federal taxes in arrears. And then we are looking for strong job creation commitments from these individual companies, because the purpose of this program is essentially, it is a jobs creation program that leverages successful companies to grow their payrolls and provide community benefit to the city of Austin. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea of a typical financing structure, as I had mentioned, it requires component financing from a private lender. So this could be a combination of either a private for-profit bank or a nonprofit local lender like a community development corporation. And so the city of Austin is limited to provide no more than 40% of a transaction, with the lion's share of the lift with respect to any transaction coming from a private lender. Again, we do not replace, we complement existing financing to provide our applicants a better overall package. And some details on that as well are we provide a low cost of borrowing. So currently our rate, it's a variable rate and it's currently offered at 1.5% variable. We offer terms as long as up to 20 years for real estate financing. And we can do working capital so long as it is committed along with a larger fixed asset lending opportunity. So that means you're buying machinery and equipment or a piece of real estate to leverage for future growth. Again, all these requirements and all these components put together, the respective package, the way that we provide the benefit to our borrowers over the short and long term is we offer very low fee hurdle for these particular transactions, and we provide low interest over the long term as not to burden our borrowers with high cost of borrowing. And when you combine this individual rate at 40% City of Austin component with the 50% component coming from a private financial institution and a minimum equity injection of at least 10% from the borrower, you get an overall blended rate that is much better and much more competitive than the market alone. And so with that, I'm sure there may be additional questions, but I wanted to provide the opportunity to pause and allow for any questions should there be at this point.
Yeah.
With no further questions, I'll hand the mic over back to Dusty for his additional moderating. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. This Enterprise Zone program is what I'll be covering today. And again, we will take all questions at the end of the presentation, and that way we are able to address all your questions at that point in time. Essentially, the Texas Enterprise Zone program is an anti-poverty program designed by the state to help disadvantaged workers to become employed and hopefully to enhance their quality of life such that they may move up and out of the stressed communities by way of permanent employment through the state's incentive offered to corporations in the form of tax refunds based upon capital investments and job creation. And again, that's done over a 5-year period. This state's legislation or the enabling legislation for this program is the Texas Enterprise Zone Act, Chapter 2303, and then the Texas Government Code as amended. And then after that, we have the Texas Administrative Code that also provides guidance with respect to Title 10. So with regard to the program, the state's perspective and how they look at it, they say that their purpose of the program is to establish a process that clearly identifies the stressed communities across the state, provides incentives by both local and state government to induce private investment in those areas by the provisions of tax incentives and economic development programs, program benefits for the creation of and retention of high quality jobs. This is really designed to encourage economic development by allowing enterprise projects to be designated outside of the enterprise zone or inside the enterprise zone with a higher threshold of hiring economically disadvantaged and enterprise zone residents. Then we have the city of Austin. The city of Austin started its enterprise zone program by way of the act. The act allows local jurisdictions to do that. And all those local jurisdictions have to have a population of 250 or more within their city or within their county. Our enterprise zone started off with our ordinance 040624-67, which allowed us to be able to establish the program as well as designate our first enterprise zone project, which was Home Depot at that time. Then again, our community with a population in excess of 250,000 or greater, we get at least 9 designations a year, every 2 years, excuse me. And then with counties, like we're within Travis County, they get 6 designations every 2 years. And so therefore, all those entities within and around the state of Texas are kind of governed similarly with respect to how many designations they are allowed to have, as well as how many they're allowed to use. So let's talk a little bit more personally about what happens here. Expectations of the applicant. So when you come to the city of Austin, each city is going to be different in how they do business with its clients. So we really would like, you can call at any point in time, discuss with us what you think you'd like to do. Tell us when you would like to do it. And as a matter of fact, call us early, call us way in advance. So that way we have some time to which we can guide you and redirect you in areas that you may need some assistance. Also, we've asked you to consult with the governor's office and get them guided. Make sure you know what your eligibility criteria is, with having a qualified business site, qualified employees, as well as your nomination level that you are seeking that you'd like to go after. And then know what the balance is between whether or not there's a benefit between whether or not you have the ability to scale to get this particular application done between now and the time you think you would want to do this. Let me go to the city's nomination process, because that is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, with respect to when things get started. So we require ample lead time. We're suggesting 8 weeks. And then when you come to us, we want you to have, or at least shortly thereafter our initial meeting, to have a written letter of request of what your intent is as an applicant. And that should be the applicant's name or the company's name, the applicant representative. The submission round date, and when I say submission round date, there are 4 submission round dates within in a year. And so we want to know what date you think you're shooting for. The nomination type, what level that might be, whether it be a half a nomination, a full nomination, or whether it be a double or a double. And then the project type, which means tell us what the description of the project, the jobs to be created and the jobs to be retained, and the capital investment that you are intending to provide for this particular project over the 5-year period. Then we would prepare a draft, which is called the request for council action, based upon the information in the letter of intent. We review the executed state application, if you have it. And then we prepare what is called a project summary, which is kind of like an executive summary, which informs the council as to what the project is all about. It talks about your company, or the applicant, I should say. It talks about the project and the parameters, as well as what is going to be actually built or constructed or done with respect to this particular program, and the kind of jobs that you're going to be creating, whether they're going to be local jobs or jobs will be transferred, however that may be. As well as where you're situated and where you're located within the city. And then a few guidelines from the the legislation that talks about those rules that apply to you specifically. In other words, whether or not you're inside the zone, which has a 25% higher rate, or whether or not you're outside the zone, which has a higher requirement of 35%. Okay? Then we would schedule that hearing with the council. Again, get to us in 8 weeks, or give us 8 weeks lead time, and we're going to have that scheduled accordingly. And then we're going to be able to prepare everything the way it should be with minimal questions and minimal issues. We will have that council date, and if approved, then the council will give us an approval, and then you can expect from us to get a certified resolution that will be provided for you, as well as page number 16 of the application, as well as page number 26 of that same application, 27 of that same application that has to be notarized. We'll provide those 3 things for you, and then you'll be on your way. With regard to that enterprise zone project application submission, you're responsible for the application itself. City of Austin is not responsible for completing the application, and we're not responsible for the fees that are submitted as well. And so those are the applicant's responsibility. We will help you where we can, but those are solely your responsibility. And then you have the statewide competition, because as I said before, that application has to go to the governor's office, and all cities that are participating in this program that are submitting a project will send their application to the governor's office. At that point, they will be competing from across the United States for what is essentially the best project within the state of Texas. That's how they look at it. And then they'll have a list of those projects, maybe be the top 7, maybe be the top 10, depends on what they were designed to cut off to be. But we have done very, very well in the city of Austin. Close to something like 22 or 23. We've been successful in getting approval rate of about 18. Very few times have we been able, or have we been denied our opportunity. What that does for the city of Austin, it brings that sales and use tax dollars back to the city of Austin. Can be turned again back within the city of Austin. Otherwise, if we lose, that money that corporation use in terms of their purchases goes to some other city that won. And so we want to do our best to help you as the applicant win, so that we can keep those dollars here within the city of Austin. With that, I'll leave it up to, I'll take it over to Kyle Brandon, our program manager for global business expansion.
Thanks, Dusty. So I am a program manager, as Dusty mentioned, in the business expansion, the business BRE, the BRE division of the City of Austin's Economic Development Department, and I manage the Business Expansion Incentive Program, which is a version of the Chapter 380 piece of legislation at the constitutional level. So in short, the Texas Constitution in Chapter 380 of it states that municipalities have the authority to enter into economic development transactions with businesses in exchange for public goods. And Chapter 380 agreements have always been leveraged in response to economic need. For example, in response to the dot-com bust, the City of Austin was very aggressive in recruiting outside job creation to help support the downturn as a result of these businesses that were facing downward economic pressures. Austin fared better than most cities across the nation in that instance. Between 2003 and 2013, we did about 21 deals with some of these beneficiaries that you may know or may have heard of, such as Facebook, Samsung, Apple, Visa, Hanger Orthopedics, and other large corporations that help stimulate our tax base by, again, drawing jobs from other regions into the city. We use performance-based incentives, meaning payment to the company was not made until the contracted commitment was evidenced and verified. Looking to bring in big businesses, Austin offered an incentive of up to 100% of the incremental property tax associated with that investment. And we're also offering job-based incentives around the range of $200 to $250 per job. But the economics between 2003 and 2013 were very different. And so we were prompted by City Council, which was kind of renewed and refreshed in 2013 to that 10-1 district base. And we looked at our incentive policy and recognized that some changes needed to be made to support our local businesses and meet our business community where they were at. And so we developed a policy that reflected Austin's values, and we put in over a year of community engagement starting in 2017 through about 2018 and 19 that consisted of community leadership consultation, best practice analysis, and program development work. We worked with boards and commissions. We worked with about 10 financial institutions, 25 other community stakeholders, 5 contract companies, 8 real estate entities, and 9 incubators to develop that policy that reflected Austin's values. So in total, that was about 2,500 pieces of individual feedback and 78 engagements. The community's input was then aggregated and analyzed and rolled up into about 10 major themes that now our economic development guiding principles are built on. And it's this new vision for the policy that includes a focus on Austin's current economic conditions and address current community challenges. Enter the Business Expansion Incentive Program. Today, we're focused on localized efforts for equitable prosperity to assist our own momentum against the forces of commercial and residential affordability. Our program is intended to focus inward. So in the past, we were bringing outside talent into the region. We are now incentivizing companies, first and foremost, to look inward at Austin's local talent shed and draw from that. Property tax reimbursements are now capped at 50%. And while that's lower than the past, we've focused on jobs. And so in exchange, whereas jobs were in the $200, $250 range, they're now up to $360 per year per job for a maximum of $1,800 over the term, which is a significant increase from before. We've also created a new incentive called a targeted hiring incentive. That's offering up to $3,000 for commitments to work with workforce solutions and hire individuals that are facing barriers to entry. We don't look to define those barriers. We take it at face value that through the commitment to working with workforce solutions, that any individual brought on board is one that's going to be facing traditional barriers to employment. One thing that remains the same is that all agreements are performance-based, and this prevents the need for any type of clawback. Previously, there weren't any funds or avenues for the city to add operational incentives, but we're now able to add value to the total incentive package, such as including fee waivers, covering the cost of expedited permitting and ombudsman services. So when we're looking at the minimum requirements for any type of business expansion incentive program, you'll see the first on our list is the but-for statement. That's the inducement argument that says, but for this incentive, would the company be able to do the anticipated growth or expansion? This is critical because it is 1, law, and 2, tells the city why and how this incentive is going to be used. Is it going to help to create headcount? Is it going to be used to lower the cost of expanding, acquiring, or investing in real property? We leave that but-for statement to the company to define. Next, we need the company to be in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. We need the company to follow any kind of MBE, WBE procurement laws and the MBWB ordinance. And so we kind of facilitate that relationship with our small minority business resource department to make sure that any goods or commodities that are being procured are following the MBEWB ordinance. All companies need to be complying with city code and paying the city's living wage of $15 per hour for any Austin-based employees. Health insurance and facilitation to access to health insurance is required. So if that's as simple as pointing individuals to the online marketplace for health insurance, that suffices. We need companies to commit to anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies. And if there's any construction involved, all of those employees need to be paid workers' compensation insurance and OSHA 10 training, city's prevailing wage program, and the city's living wage of $15 per hour. Next slide, please. So let's talk about, I guess, how to apply. If a local business is looking to apply, you'll see that the barrier for threshold is much lower than that of a company moving to the region. Local businesses, such as yours, may only need to create 5 jobs over a 5-year period. And the companies had to exist within the city for at least 12 months. Companies that are moving into the region have a minimum job creation of about 75 jobs, and they need to be showing some type of new presence, new operational line, new business line, and make the case that, again, that inducement argument is strong enough to warrant the incentive. All companies come to me to receive the application for the Business Expansion Incentive Program, and it's really a working relationship. There's a section that just captures general business information. Next, there's a job creation schedule, and so we're looking at headcount year over year over that 5-year period, in addition to the wages associated with that. We're going to be looking at any type of construction schedule. So we want to capture machinery and equipment, furniture, fixtures and equipment, any type of IT investments, and construction labor associated with the project, if applicable. And finally, and the most important part, next slide please, are these community benefits. So the community benefits section of our application is, again, a really iterative process. And this is where we incorporate a lot of stakeholder engagement that I spoke about earlier. We've codified 7 areas that we really look at. Talent development, diversity and inclusion being very important to the community. And so some examples of commitments by the company are whether or not the company offers a career ladder. Does the company offer educational opportunities and training to its employees, such as upskilling, training, and workshops? Does the firm offer entry-level development programs, such as apprenticeships, paid internships, co-op learning, work study, etc.? These are just examples of commitments around talent development, diversity, and inclusion that we're going to capture in this section of the application. It's a free response, prose response, where the company just fills in these commitments. We weigh it against that codified matrix of community benefits that were informed by stakeholder engagement. And then those commitments will be crosswalked into the agreement. So it's really important that the company expresses itself in the strongest light, really highlighting that corporate citizenship to make sure that those ties to the fabric of Austin are highlighted. And as your liaison, I'm going to help do that as we work through the application process. Next slide, please. This is an example of 3 businesses that went through that process. And once we finished the community benefit process, each of these businesses were able to receive an incentive that were executed under the city manager's spending authority of $61,000, meaning after the application process, we reviewed these proposals internally and we were able to execute them on the spot once we had a mutually agreed upon contract. Look at Oro if you haven't been, a fabulous restaurant in the Mueller development, which incidentally is a project, a master development project with our redevelopment division. Astute Electronics is a company that works in the distribution of advanced manufacturing components, and All Pro Hospitality, a great company that's working with boutique staffing and pulls individuals, especially 10 targeted hires into the workforce. So they received a significant investment for that commitment. I know that there might be some questions at the end, so I'll wait for that. But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and pass the mic over to Kim McCarson.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm Kim McCarson, the Economic and Business Liaison for the Music and Entertainment Division, and I manage the Creative Space Relief Program, or Creative Space Assistance Program, CSAP. CSAP provides direct support to qualifying organizations facing temporary or permanent displacement, or to those who were previously displaced. For example, a theater that had to find a new space at a higher monthly rate because the old property was sold, or a music venue maybe that wants to install sprinklers to increase their capacity, or maybe the recent purchase of property by a creative organization are all candidates for the CSAP program. The program was piloted in 2018 for nonprofits, and then added for-profit creative businesses in 2019, And then independent artists were added in 2020. So we haven't completed the guidelines for the next fiscal year, but there are always some changes from year to year. But the main purpose and the main purpose are, in the eligible uses of all the funds are basically the same from year to year. So the program was typically funded around $1 million and can fund grants up to $50,000 each, one grant per awardee, and the average grant is about $30,000. Eligible uses include rent stipend. The grant can fund a portion of rent each month for a year, which is typically based on rent increases. It can fund gap financing for property acquisition. So a portion of your purchase, up to $50,000, can be paid for recently acquired property, or other space-related needs like facility improvements or displacement-related expenditures. This could include moving costs, stage construction, theater seats, a new AC unit, upgrading the bathroom, basically anything that would help sustain your business and help you sell more tickets or offer more or enhanced programming. So next slide, please. So who can access these services? Well, individual artists were added to the program last year, arts-focused nonprofits, and select for-profit creative businesses as allowed by specific definitions in the program guidelines, and I'll go over that with you briefly. So the definitions in the program guidelines allow for for-profit businesses that are live music venues, performance venues or theaters, or museums or art galleries. And specifically, a live music venue is an establishment where live music programming is the principal function of the business. And the business is a live music destination, and the venue clearly establishes the ability for an artist to receive payment working there. And the live music venue would have to have 5 of the following 8 characteristics. Have a defined performance and audience space, have a mixing desk, a PA system, or a lighting rig, backline. At least 2 of these: sound engineer, booker, promoter, stage manager, or security personnel. You have to charge a cover charge for performances through ticketing or a front door entrance fee. You have to market specific acts through show listings in printed or electronic publications. Your hours of operation must coincide with performance times, or you program live music at least 5 nights a week. And that's for live music venues. Performance venues and theaters are an establishment whose principal function and mission is to present live music performances, plays, live music, film screenings, other performances by artists or art organizations. All must be accessible by public audiences. And a museum and art gallery is a facility whose principal function and mission are to exhibit, present, and or sell artistic work in a variety of media produced by an artist, a collective, an organization, and again, must be accessible by public audiences. We don't fund city-run, state-run, or federally run or operated facilities. So those would not qualify. An applicant must also be impacted by the real estate market after June 1st, 2016. So this is a retroactive grant. You have to be displaced or relocated or forced to close or facing the imminent threat of displacement or relocation. You have a renewed lease at a substantially higher rate. And what we mean by substantially higher is 25% higher than the old lease, and are facing pending lease renewal at a substantially higher rate if you're going someplace else. You have to have an executed lease or lease offer, which is like a letter from the property owner. The leased property or property that you're acquiring must be located in the city of Austin or ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. The property zoned residential, though, will not meet the qualification of this grant. So in other words, if this grant won't fund property in residential areas that are zoned as such. So for example, if you're an artist and you're looking to fund your garage studio at your house, that kind of thing would not qualify because that would be residential. The grant is really only for commercial space. So what are some of the benefits of the program? The program is intended to create sustainability for commercial creative spaces. And it's intended to give creatives some help while resolving how to deal with the rising real estate costs that we're facing in Austin. It also requires that the awardee participate in either technical assistance or professional development programs through the City of Austin, or career development for grades K through 12. Technical assistance, we consider that workshops or courses in things like how to build a board if you're a nonprofit, or marketing classes. And an example of professional development would be learning better personnel management or time management skills. And those types of classes in the past have been offered for free through the city. And we think those are a huge benefit to the awardees, and they are required. So some of the things that you might expect to submit with your application. Well, first, the application is online through a platform called Zoom Grants. You would need an executed lease or a letter of intent from the property owner. And you must also submit a recent tax return. We've required the past 2 years in the past. And you would also need to submit financial statements such as a profit and loss statement. And if you are doing a leasehold improvement project and you're using grant funds for that, you would also need to submit a project budget. So if you would like to contact me about the program and get more details, my email is kimberly.mccarson@austintexas.gov. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Dusty.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I appreciate each and every presentation so thus far. Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Kim. And we're now at our Q&A portion. And I'll ask our co-pilots, Cassie Jackson or Susan Walker, whether or not we have any questions in the chat.
We do not at this time have any questions.
Okay. All righty. Then the moderator will take moderator privileges. And I have some questions myself, so we will do our best to answer these questions as we go forward. First question for our panel, and that includes me. Can you give an example of a company you were successful in helping and provide some brief details of the situation?
Dusty, I think I'll go ahead and kick us off if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, so one of the early examples through the Family Business Loan Program, again, available for small businesses located here in the city of Austin, was a restaurateur had already had a very successful catering company, but was really looking to take that concept into a brick and mortar location and wanted an opportunity to revitalize a local, restaurant that had been shuttered. And he had a special feeling for that restaurant because he was a UT student. He had gone there for several years throughout his college experience, and was just really sad to see that location close off of East Cesar Chavez. And so he took his passion for food, his success in business, and his desire to revitalize that particular area of town specific to this restaurant, and relaunched it, what was once Arky's Grill, into Sawyer and Company. And that was, I think, an example of one of the fantastic transactions we started off with early on in the program around 2013. And I remember specifically from this individual that he had illuminated the fact that many restaurant ventures are really individual chefs and operators that play a minority role with respect to ownership to the business, despite the fact that it's their vision, their food, their ambiance. They a lot of times play a back seat to investors that provide a majority of the funding, and a lot of times it's more of a silent partnership. So we were really excited when he was able to share with us that this program, by partnering with the city of Austin as well as a local financial institution, allowed him to own his company as opposed to have to sell off a majority share of it and just really become a manager or an operator as opposed to living his dream of opening that company and owning it for himself and really guiding the direction of this company moving forward. So yeah, that was one of our early experiences, and really the motivation to continue to look for local Austin companies that were not getting the attention specifically from local lenders for whatever reason. Maybe the transaction was too small or the industry was not desired. And we really looked to leverage strong companies that were doing well, but just couldn't get the attention. And I think that was one great example. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else?
I can go, Dusty.
Okay.
Take that question. So the CSAP program, the awardees, I got a bunch of comments once the pandemic hit that people who were receiving grant money for the rent stipend said they could have made it without it. Of course, we couldn't have predicted that was going to happen when we put that grant together in 2019. But a specific awardee, a theater that we helped, had been shut down because of code violations, and was a surprise visit and didn't see it coming kind of thing. And code officer walks in, and there were several things that were problematic and had to be fixed. And the theater had to be shut down for some period of time. And as you know, when you're shut down, you're not bringing in any money. And so the CSAP program money was really helpful to this particular theater to get to meet the expectations of the code and to bring things back up to that level. And then they were able to reopen. And this was a pre-pandemic example, but that theater had faced months of closure. Luckily, they were able to use the CSAP money to implement the improvements that they needed in order to satisfy code and then reopen. And so they were successful, and they are still with us.
Fantastic. What else?
Yeah, I mentioned the three transactions related to the Business Expansion Incentive Program to date that were all pretty significant, because each one took on a version of our palette of incentive options. So one in particular, Suit Electronics, took on our traditional All Pro Hospitality, took on 10 targeted, much more significant commitment, especially for helping those barriers to entry. And so that was huge for us to test case this incentive that we've been working on for so long. Finally, look at Oro committing to both types, traditional and target hires. I can't pick a favorite, but it's exciting to see that there is appetite in the market for each type of incentive across industries and business size.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I don't have a favorite either. We do always, on routine basis, get called by our large corporations that are in the area, the Samsungs, Applied Materials of the world, and we're always willing to help them. Those are large employers who have thousands of employees here in Austin, and made Austin kind of almost their corporate home, so to speak, or their second corporate home, so to speak. But we always have them, and we're always willing to help them. We did have someone that we thought was a little special in the fact that Roy and Ryan Sider invented or created a corporate company called Yeti, Y-E-T-I. It's called Yeti Holdings. And they are guys who were here in Central Texas, grew up out there on Lake Travis, and loved the boating industry and stuff like that. And I guess they didn't have a cooler that would last long enough while they're out there partying on the lake. So they decided to design one themselves. And lo and behold, they started out with a hard side cooler. And then they came up with a soft cooler, and then they went into business. And so now they are into what is called drinkware. And they are a outdoor manufacturing adventure company. And so they are local, and they have a headquarters here. As a matter of fact, it's right across the bridge from City Hall, and they're locally owned. And they are one of the ones who I wanted to highlight today. Very, very good company, and the products, at least from what I know and from what I've been using, are great. And so that's the one of the ones that I would provide. Question number 2. Are there any important dates in the future that you want our audience to look out for regarding your program?
I can take this one, Dusty,
Okay.
because I think my I'm accepting applications to the Business Expansion Incentive Program on a rolling basis, on an ongoing basis, all year round, so long as I'm available. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dusty, I can provide some dates as well. Similar to Kyle's response, the Family Business Loan Program is a rolling application, really there to be available as your company needs funding for expansion. I do want to emphasize, though, as others have mentioned in their process, we do want to make sure that we build in plenty of lead time for these transactions, because any transactions that are within the city manager authority, we can advance fairly quickly. With respect to transactions above the city manager authority, there's a requirement for these items to go to council for approval, and that does require deliberative planning to ensure that we get them scheduled on the Austin City Council agenda in order to meet their funding needs. So with respect to timelines, we just want to make sure that you want to be well in advance of your need for funding, get your application in, get your documentation submitted, reviewed, so that we can go ahead and build in that timeline to allow an applicant to be successful in securing the funding when they need the funding. The best way to do that, again, my email address is provided in this presentation, is to coordinate with a loan representative, including myself, and to plan out what a transaction would look like, so that we can make sure for your individual application that we are customizing that process so that we can meet your funding need. Thank you.
Dusty, I can just address that question. We don't actually have finalized guidelines yet for the CSAP program 21-22, but we will be posting them to the Economic Development website, and specifically to cultural arts and the music division sites. And that timeline will also be available in the cultural arts and music division newsletters. So if anybody out there would like to subscribe to those, please contact me and I can direct you how to do that. Kimberly.mccarson@austintexas.gov. Thank you.
And I also will reiterate, the state of Texas accepts applications quarterly with deadlines on the first working day of March, June, September, and December. Again, that's March, June, September, and December. And that is a deadline. I mean, that's on the first day. And so that's usually somewhere around those first couple of days of that particular month. However, I strongly urge you that do not necessarily focus so much on these dates, but focus on 8 weeks out from these dates, so that when you come to the city of Austin, you have ample time, ample lead time for us to help you best, to help you get prepared, to help represent you on paper, and to help present you before the council with hopefully minimal questions being asked, so that you can move forward with your applications and compete at the state level as you desire to do. Again, the earlier you get with us, even if you don't have a project, the earlier you get with us to talk about what's required, it is, we can walk toward that deadline, hand in hand, arm in arm, so to speak, and get it done. All right. Is there any questions on the in the chat box?
Yes, sir. We have one question for Kim. Kim,
Okay.
do you have any idea when the details of the new CSAP will be ready? Summer, fall, or winter of 2021?
So what I can say is that we're still collecting community feedback, process we go through with each grant cycle. And we'll be collecting that through June and July for sure. So it won't be until after that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. I have a third question here. It is, are there any takeaways or nuggets that you want our audience to remember about your program? Any takeaways or nuggets you want them to remember about our program?
Dusty, I'll chime in here. I would just want to offer, really to kind of set expectations and delineate the difference between lending versus investing as a function. And so because this particular program does partner and does complement existing lending products in the market as a public-private partnership, really kind of setting the expectations of what we call narrative versus numbers. And, from an investor standpoint, they are very much interested in the numbers. Those are extremely important. With lending, it's more so. And so part of that initial consultation and conversation is really understanding that breakdown for a lender, whether it's going to be the City of Austin in cooperation with a private lender, it's going to be a 90% numbers, 10% narrative conversation. And so we want to encourage individual applicants to be successful, is to participate in some of the other programming that you've heard throughout this series with respect to classes and educational opportunities to shore up those particular components of your understanding of your numbers so that you can have a successful application and understand what is being asked to be provided with respect to support information. And so with that, once we have a solid foundation for making a justification to a lender, we can work with your lender or a list of the lenders, the 8 lenders that we've identified, to really help you make the strongest case for your application and help to usher that through the process for you. But again, I do want to set that expectation up front that with respect to lending, it really is a look at historical success and to build upon that foundation of historical success to support an application going forward. To that point, all of the companies that we have provided loans for were at some point, in front of a lender, and they were not necessarily interested in the transaction at the outset. When we had an opportunity to take a deeper dive in looking at the core of the business, its profitability, we were able to help provide additional support for an application and a complementary financing transaction. And so I think that's part of the great success of this particular program. Thank you.
Good.
Dusty, I'll go and answer this question. So the 3 things for the CSAP grant that I would want to just underscore for everybody is the uses of the grant. There's 3 uses: rent stipend, leasehold improvements or other space-related costs like moving, and property acquisition. The second thing that I want to underscore is that the grant can cover expenses that have already been incurred. So if it's something that happened, a year or 2 ago, that's something that can still be covered under the grant, or it can be a new project that you're about to embark on. And third thing is that the grant is for commercial space and it can't be used for residential space. It's only for commercial space. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I have one. I'll respond to that as well. With respect to the enterprise zone program, there is no shame whatsoever in being 90 days or a whole quarter out from when you'd like to launch your effort to apply for enterprise zone. Also, please understand, we are the city of Austin. We're not a duplicate of any of the other cities within the state of Texas. All cities do business the way that they've decided to do business. And so therefore our process is going to be different. If you work within our process, man, our process is going to work for you 9.9 times out of 10, unless there's something that we just don't know is unforeseen. And so we just ask you to give us as much lead time as possible, provide as much information up front as you can, and allow us to work with you to the extent that we have the time to do so. If you come to us way late, then you're going to make the process almost unbearable for yourself as well as for our council who has to make the decision. So with that, are there any more questions in the chat box at this time?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Javier, Kyle, and Kim for presenting today. I also want to thank our colleagues, Cassie Jackson and Susan Walker, who have been co-piloting and producing this segment and keeping me straight. We appreciate each and every one for each of their help in this presentation and making it a success today. Thank you all to the audience and to all who have been viewing. We appreciate you taking the time to attend today. Please do not forget to complete our survey. It helps us to improve on our efforts. Don't forget to visit smallbizaustin.org. Again, smallbizaustin.org, and that's SMALLBIZAUSTIN.org for more information. Thank you for coming today. We look forward to seeing you again. This concludes presentation number 3, and we hope to see you next year. Stay healthy, and thank you very much.